Well, all right. Good morning, everyone. I see that folks are coming in from the waiting room. So, welcome to the Cash annual month, or the virtual monthly meeting. Um, Welcome to you. Thank you for being here with us today. I'd like to give a special welcome to our first-time attendees and new members. And if you are a first-time attendee or new member, would you please introduce yourself in the chat box? And as you're doing that, let me take a moment to remind folks that as you're using that chat box, please make sure that you're using that drop-down arrow to message all panelists and attendees. That way everybody can see you. So again, thank you for doing that. And also, as a quick reminder, please refrain from any marketing in the chat box as we hear from our presenters today. So Caitlin, will you take us to the next slide, please? I'd like to share just a little bit about the annual conference that we just came off of at the end of June. And you look at those pictures, and what I see in those pictures is really just great energy from everybody there. And I really felt that throughout the entire conference. In the education sessions, there was a lot of collaboration, a lot of good conversations that I heard. So for me, it was a great recharge as we really moved towards our ultimate purpose here over the next few weeks, and that's returning all of our students to the in-person classroom setting. So I hope that if you attended that, you also felt that energy and got that great recharge. And I'm really looking forward to the 43rd annual conference, and Alan will share a bit more about that later in the morning. Next slide, please, Caitlin. I do see we have a few folks that have joined us. I'll just recognize Ellen from Danube Unified. That's close by here in Fresno. Welcome. And then Lisa Gonzalez, also welcome, and we'll hear from you a little bit later as well. As most of you know, Cash has a new member portal, and so please make sure that you sign in and set up your individual profile so you can utilize the tools and membership perks in that. You can access event handouts, you can network with other Cash members, and so much more. You can also manage your membership in that portal. So make sure that you do that. You should have received an email back in April. If you are new since April, or if you just need help locating that, you can email Aileen, and you see her email there on the bottom of the slide for assistance in getting registered on the member portal. All right, next slide, please, Caitlin. Upcoming events, our next web shop is actually tomorrow. We're going to continue our conversation on the new TK policy and discuss planning and issues around that. We'll hear from, again, district and policy experts on that. So registration and details can be found on the Cash website. Make sure you check that out. We expect to have, again, a robust conversation about TK and the questions in that area. All right, next slide, Caitlin. And then our next opportunity to gather in person is our fall conference, and we're scheduled for October 18th through the 20th, and we'll be again at the Hyatt Regency in Newport Beach. A registration link and hotel block link should be coming out shortly. Please keep your eyes out for that. And we look forward to getting together again in person in October. All right, next slide, Caitlin. All right, we'll jump into our state agency updates. And our first update is from our friend John Gordon with the California Department of Education. John, we're happy to have you with us again. And welcome. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm hanging in there. Thank you. It's always wonderful to see you, Jeff. Always.
Thank you, John. I'll turn it over to you.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. I have a couple of things I would like to share from the Department of Education. The first one, not so much from the Department of Education, but as we well know, back on July 12th, the CDPH did release their revised guidelines, and we know that masks are to be worn indoors when students are present, and it's up to the district or the school to decide, how to handle students who refuse to wear or comply with the mask rule. And if a district or school opts to exclude students who refuse to wear masks, they got to provide some kind of a alternative educational opportunity. So the Department of Health We'll continue assessing the plan and probably decide no later than November 1st whether to update the mask requirements. And those who live in LA County, and I found out here in Sacramento County that we will be returning to masks indoors in restaurants and grocery stores, and feels like here we go again. But let's hope we can move forward a little bit differently this time. From the CDE part of it, I just wanted, from a federal funding perspective, I wanted to thank everyone that came to our workshop, the CDE workshop at the CASH conference last month. We had a lively discussion here with my colleague Joe Sines from the Governmental Affairs, as well as our guest from DSA. One of the questions that came up is, what does completion look like? So essentially, what documentation or proof does an LEA need to show a construction project was completed during the grant period? And I think there's, we came up with many different ways to interpret what completion looks like. And this time I don't really have an answer, but what I can share is that since the conference, DSA and CDE have met, and we are trying to work collaboratively to figure out what that interpretation looks like. And once we have something to share, it will be put up on our website under our FAQs. And I really expect to have something figured out before the next CASH meeting. Speaking of, there's been a lot of discussion about using federal dollars for HVAC projects. The Federal Department of Education recently provided some guidance on how LEAs can improve ventilation in schools using federal dollars. There is a web address, and I'll put it in the chat after I'm done with my my presentation, but it is www.ed.gov/coronavirus, one word, /improving ventilation. And there's a dash in between improving and ventilation. And once again, I'll put this in the chat if I spoke too quickly, or it's probably just more convenient just to click there. So a couple of other things. As we know, the August occupancy deadline is coming up, and with the school year around the corner, we're seeing an influx at CDE with new construction projects. And if you submitted a new construction project recently and you're facing this occupancy deadline, please contact your field rep or contact me so that we can flag it. For districts that have yet to submit a project that are facing the occupancy deadline, and you have not submitted to CDE yet here on July 28th, I can't necessarily guarantee that we'll be able to review and approve those in time. Just as a reminder, CDE needs at least 3 months to review a project. And that's a standard that I'm holding my staff to. 3 months to get back. And of course, this takes into consideration, how many projects we've received, the complexity of each project, the thoroughness of the submission and how complete it is, as well as the responsiveness from the LEA, the architect, or the consultant. So please make sure you're working with your architect and consultant to ensure that the plans for your projects are submitted to CDE and DSA concurrently. If you think that your project is not eligible for state reimbursement, ask for a preliminary review letter, which really costs nothing to the district. At least you'll have CDE's input. And please remember that all construction projects, regardless of their funding source, must meet Title V. So feel free to reach out to, again, me or any of my staff if you have any questions, and that's my update.
Thanks, John. Can I ask a question on the project review timelines and the TK issue? Is there any priority given for any type of project that's coming through now, or do we all join the queue and let the folks work through the workload? Well,
obviously, if there's a deadline coming up, we want to be aware of it. It's, what I have come across is submitting it to CDE, and quite frankly, it's been a DSA a year ago. And it either fell through the cracks, or a year ago wasn't eligible for funding, and now it's eligible. So can you please hurry up and just sign off? And it doesn't always work out that way. So that's why, just communicating with us where your project is at, and we can see what we can do. It's not like we're sitting on our hands waiting for projects. I've got a ton of projects that our staff are working on, and we are trying to prioritize those new construction projects. As it relates to TK, and I know there's a lot of conversation and excitement, is when the program first came out, I can share, Jeff, that we have on our FAQs, and it's a little bit buried. We should probably unbury it because the CDE website isn't exactly the most navigatable. But when the program came out, CDE has said that the design standards for a TK are going to be the same as a kinder. So that's how we will look at those and sign off. And in some cases, we have signed off on TK projects in the past that they've had kinder eligibility. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you, John. That's helpful to know that we'll be looking at the TK through the same Title V lens as we look at kindergarten classrooms. The one other question that I had for you, is there any thought regarding Title V and the new community school programs that are in the budget, some of those wraparound services, and what those could look like on a campus from that Title V perspective?
I think at this point, it's something that we would be looking at, on the State Department end. Getting regulations approved are sometimes really laborious. I know that at CDE, my predecessors have made some of those attempts, and we're looking at some of those larger issues to justify maybe changing our Title V. So I actually would welcome a discussion. I think my colleague Leslie Taylor, who's probably on this meeting as well, we both welcome actually having that conversation to talk about what does a community school look like, and what are the components, and how is it that that we could support or provide some kind of guidance. And maybe that guidance may result in regulation. But I will tell you that our approach to guidance is really wanting to be collaborative to many stakeholders. And so that's a culture Leslie and I are trying to bring as we are getting on board here.
Yeah, well, we'd be happy to sit down with you anytime you'd like, John.
Yeah,
let's make it happen.
yeah, absolutely.
Zoom, or we can come down to Fresno, or we go to Long Beach. I heard Alan there. We can go to Long Beach.
Yes, please. Yeah, anytime. We'd love to come down and host an opportunity to collaborate on the requirements of some of these new programs as we work towards developing them. And then my only comment was, and I appreciated that clarification about the standards to be used when we work towards TK, as a lot of districts, including Long Beach, are working to evaluate our space needs. And as we begin to forecast the number of students that would participate in this program, I think it is important that we do look at what those space needs will be. And so my only suggestion would be maybe another reminder coming out from CDE to school sites to remind them what the standards that will be applied towards these TK programs would be very important. So I thank you for that, and look forward to collaborating. So Long Beach is available. Please come down.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I think school districts are in a very difficult situation, pandemic aside. When we talk about full day kindergarten and what districts are trying to implement that on their school sites, and whether they have the real estate to do that. And now we're talking about TK and where does that fit, and whether we're starting to, maybe there's a trend that we may see as a result of different size school sites to accommodate different grade levels, because the old 10-acre K-6 elementary school may not be able to house a TK and a K, in terms of not just the space, but we're talking, recesses, and we're talking lunches, and we're talking physical education, and a lot of growth that comes on ends up, conveniently going on blacktop spaces. So it is a challenge for school districts, and it's, something we really need to be thoughtful about as we move forward.
Yeah, thank you very much, John, for that. And so that's just a little taste, I think, of some of the conversation we'll have in the web shop tomorrow. So again, feel free to check out the website and sign up for that if you haven't already. John, thank you very much for the update. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you.
All right, well, next up, we have our friend Lisa Silverman from the Office of Public School Construction. Lisa, good morning to you. I hope you're doing well.
Yes, we are. How are you?
I'm good, good. I'll turn it
I
over.
was just in the office yesterday. Yesterday I was in the office. So it was, yeah, interesting to see that. I mean, we have to be very fluid in our environment, just like school districts. So appreciate the opportunity. So I know we don't have a board meeting this month, and just wanted to, I appreciate the invite so that we can connect. I know we've been having the discussion for many months about our policy item in August, and that's related to the eligibility, potential COVID eligibility adjustments, or how do we deal with that as a policy issue. So I just wanted, and I know we've been in communication with some folks already. Basically, I know we've communicated with Tom, Matt, and definitely looking forward to a follow-up conversation to have more dialogue about some of the concerns. And again, we definitely want to make sure that we get a better lens or better viewpoint of some of the challenges that districts are facing. So I'll be looking forward to having a follow-up call or meeting with Tom and Matt soon. So more to come in that area. And again, we're looking to get more input and data, so then that way we can fully inform the board about some of the challenges that are out there. And what else do we have going on? We have another training opportunity coming up, and that's for the financial hardship online training. So if you haven't received a new update on a new flyer will be coming out. And just reminding folks of that training opportunity sometime next week. So don't miss out. You'll have some folks there to provide some overall guidance and assistance on how you can qualify for financial hardship. So I think so far we have about 80 signed up for that training opportunity. So if you don't have the time to actually go through the training process and be alive and interactive with us, there is an opportunity. We'll post that on our OPSC YouTube page. So then that at your leisure, you can actually get some information and get some education out of that. What else do we want to share? We have, a pretty full agenda for August, and understanding the recess is coming upon us with the legislative members. And we are still trying to figure out a venue, whether or not we can actually have an in-person meeting. So we are looking forward to that. But at this point in time, I know we haven't successfully secured the state capitol. So I think maybe we'll have a better opportunity in the upcoming months. But again, we have to be flexible in our current environment, since it looks like mask mandates and probably more of a social distance environment in the upcoming months. I know Yola County imposed one, and Sac County is imposing that as well. So have to be mindful of that environment. So we'll be keeping you posted on whether or not we actually will secure a site to have an in-person meeting. And I apologize. I know for some folks, I was really looking forward to the CASH conference, and I know Barbara did a fantastic job. And so, again, I know we had to juggle, divide and conquer on a number of different hot assignments. So looking forward to continue to participate. And I think I will be participating in the CASH Academy at the end of the month. So looking forward to having more interaction with folks going through the Academy in the future. And we are also working with the Treasurer's Office to find out when the schedule for the bond sales are for the fall. So we'll be working with the Treasurer's Office again to secure what the timing of that bond sale is, and bringing apportionments to the board. So I'm hoping to have an announcement in the next week or two as we move closer to the board about when that cash sale will be occurring. What else would we like to share? Yes, we'll be having some full day kinder conversations and setting up. We're looking at our calendar to see when we can start setting up stakeholder meetings and closely start working together to get some feedback on how we move forward with the kindergarten and expansion of that program that include TK and state-run facilities. So again, more to come in that area as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about?
Well, Lisa, thank you for being with us and sharing. And yes, Barbara was fantastic down in Palm Springs. So we fully understand, and she did a great job down there. Regarding the TK issue and the stakeholder meetings, I do think that there are probably a lot of questions in the field about how that will work and how these classes will impact other aspects of the school facility program and eligibility calculations and classroom counts and all those things. So really looking forward to that conversation, and appreciate you also taking the item to the August board regarding enrollment projections and how we deal with the interesting situation that we have of having a pandemic and online, and what the changes were to our population and enrollment. So all good conversations and things that are very pertinent and timely. So look forward to continuing the conversations in that area.
No, and I appreciate it. I mean, it's really important to not just get one side of the lens, but get all aspects of all the impacts to districts throughout California. So I'm hoping to, again, expand the information we have and definitely be more definitely inclusive. So looking forward to schedule some more meetings and having more opportunities to share data. So
Yeah,
I appreciate everyone's support in this area, because we definitely want to have an informative approach of how we talk about this thing in the future, and it will have some impacts, and hopefully the impacts are positive impacts instead of negative impacts. That's really what we're trying to find a solution.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Lisa. And we'll be flexible as we work through all these issues, as we have been over the past year and a half. We've gotten very good at being flexible.
Yes, exactly. So, but yeah, thank you for the opportunity. If anyone else has any questions, hopefully have some more updates in the upcoming week related to the bond sale. So, and more as far as the announcements for the stakeholder meetings for FDK.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for joining us, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next up, we have our legislative and regulatory updates, as well as maintenance network updates. We have Nancy Chavez Espinosa and Rebecca Curley, who will give us an update. Good morning. Looks like you're up first, Nancy.
Yes, good morning. It's good to be with you. I'm going to cover some procedural things before I hand it off to my colleague, Rebecca. First off, the legislature is currently in its summer recess right around the middle. They come back in a couple of weeks, Monday, August 16th. That means the official work, committees, votes, things of that nature are on pause, but there's still a great deal happening there, especially budget related things, which we'll get into it a little bit later. So after they get back on August 16th, they'll have 2 weeks for the appropriations committees to finish their work. And then after that, there's a 2-week period in which both houses will be working on the floor to approve all of the bills that they have been debating that came from the other house. So if those bills have been amended in the second house, they go back to the first house for concurrence in those amendments. If they don't, they can go straight on to the governor's desk. And the end of session is September 10th. So that's coming up. It's around the corner. In the budget process, the administration and the legislative budget committees are still very hard at work on fiscal year 21-22 budget. As we've discussed previously, there were so many changes in the fiscal situation, new federal funds being injected into the state that needed to be programmed, so many more new programs within education alone that were being created. So the details of many of those are still being worked out in trailer bills. And there are new proposals still being developed, if you can believe it, for the fiscal year that has already started. And we're particularly on the lookout for anything that has to do with wildfire and energy resiliency. That's an area where the administration has continued to get some pressure, we shall say, for additional action, and obviously something that we are living in many parts of the state right now. I should also mention, even though all of these folks are working on the budget for the year we are in, they are also already, in the administration at least, beginning the fiscal year 2022-23 proposed budget. So all of that is happening at the same time. I want to give a quick recap on what has happened with all of this new COVID guidance as well, which all of our schools are having to parse out and implement and communicate to all of our families and employees and students. So if you can follow the timeline, on July 9th, the CDC issued its guidance, which CDC guidance is not binding on our schools. I want to clarify that, because sometimes the word guidance means it's advisory, which it is in the case of the CDC, and sometimes it means it's mandatory, it's a rule. So CDC guidance was issued on July 9th, stating that unvaccinated people could forego their masks. And the principle of this guidance is that all students should have access to safe, full in-person instruction for as much time as possible. A few days later, the California Department of Public Health issued its guidance, introducing this concept of modified quarantine, which really borrowed from the CDC's definitions of exposure and its proposals. So the biggest change there is that if, for example, your child is in a classroom where someone tests positive for COVID, but was not within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, then they can go into something called modified quarantine. So they don't need to miss school if they are asymptomatic, and they are just tested on a regular basis. And I think most of our schools now have on-site free PCR testing. This is the rapid testing. So that was really the biggest change of that July 12th CDPH guidance. They did follow that up the next day and softened some language, but did not really make substantive change. What they did is they eliminated where it said that if students did not wear masks, they had to be excluded, because that's really strong language, and that's just not something we do in public education. And they changed it to say, well, the school can figure out how they're going to deal with that. However, it doesn't mean that unmasked students who don't fit into those narrow exemption criteria can be in class. That still cannot happen. And you still cannot offer distance learning, even if the family is asking for it, even if students are in special education, and independent study would be less effective for them. So it's a really fun time for LEAs to parse all of this right now. There was one more update. The CDC followed up just a couple of days ago, or was it yesterday? Yeah, and reinstated masks for unvaccinated people. But one piece that isn't, I think, appropriately reported is that they reinstated the masks, mask guidance for unvaccinated people living in areas with substantial or high transmission, according to a map that they have published on their website. So this map, it includes most of California. You may have heard, under the old tier system, most of California would be in purple right now, thanks to the Delta virus and pockets of places where there are high unvaccinated populations. The pandemic is still soaring, and projections that we are hearing for a peak range from sometime in August to October. So we don't know when, but we do think that things could get a little bit worse. But the direction for California schools is to continue under quarantine, modified quarantine and testing protocols, and do what we can to keep kids in school in person. So stay tuned. This is obviously a continuously evolving area, and we are posting all of these things to the Cash COVID site if you want a one-stop to keep track of all of these things. With that, I will pass it to my colleague, Rebecca.
Thank you, Nancy. Good morning, everyone. Just briefly, I want to talk a little bit about Universal Transitional Kindergarten and some of the facilities funding opportunities that we have coming down the pike. Nancy mentioned the budget process, which has been very exhaustive this year. Our education trailer bill is AB 130 that has been passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. So we've got some marching orders when it comes to the implementation of Universal Transitional Kindergarten and some of our other issues that we've been tracking. As far as TK goes, we've talked a lot this morning already about it, and you're going to continue to hear a lot about it. I was reflecting with a colleague yesterday about how this is the first time probably in any of our careers that we've seen an entire new grade level for all children created. So it obviously is going to have some significant ripple effects on facilities and the work that we're all doing. The estimate is that there will be about 250,000 kids that will be served by this new grade level. I think one of the things that's very important to remember about this is that these are not brand new kids that have come from outer space and landed in California. They are kids that are being served by other programs and are not just, unhoused. So for the purposes of the work that we do in K through 12 land, they're not here, but they are in preschool and in childcare and other settings. So this complicates the implementation a little bit. Some of those folks are probably going to want to keep their kids. And then on the flip side, these programs need to serve families and students who are already being served by other programs. So there's a lot that's gone into how can this program really meet those needs of those families and students. And in this vein, the legislature has done a lot of work at looking at how can we ensure that there are wraparound services and really a holistic way of providing early childhood education. So one of the things that AB 130 does is it says, if you are operating a California state preschool program, that program can actually provide wraparound services. So before and after care and summer care for TK and kinder kids. So that'll create some interesting situations in the facilities world. For full implementation of this program, it is expected to be in fiscal year 25-26. So between now and then, there's a lot of implementation that will take place. The 21-22 year is intended for planning and infrastructure development. And then starting in 22-23, we'll have the expansion of students coming into TK. Full implementation, we're going to have all of our 4-year-olds. So if you've had your 4th birthday by September 1st, you will be eligible for TK, and TK is now TK is part of a 2-year kindergarten program. As far as the ratio goes, AB 130 did settle on a ratio at full implementation of 1 adult to every 10 kids. So when you do the math on a classroom that's got a loading standard of 24, the math is a little bit interesting there, right? So are we going to have 24 kids in a classroom with 3 adults? This will get a little bit interesting, and lots more to talk about here. So we are going to spend a lot of time on this issue tomorrow in our cash workshop on TK. I'll be there talking more about what we know about the funding opportunities for planning and facilities. So join us tomorrow. Just really briefly on facilities funding in the budget, we do have about $1.75 billion for our bond program, which is very exciting. So we've got the $1.5 billion that the governor had identified previously, plus an additional $250 million that is supplemental dollars that are going to the 2016 State School Facilities Fund. And those are for new construction and modernization projects. So it's general fund money, not additional bond sales, but it's supplemental to the 1.5 billion. And that will be spent, the 250 million will be allocated to eligible projects by the State Allocation Board until June 30th, 2022. So we're really excited about that. As far as other facilities funding goes, Lisa mentioned the full day kindergarten facilities grant program. So that's been expanded. Preschool and TK are also now eligible for that program, and the budget did provide $490 million for that. I think that Lisa did mention that there is some implementation that will need to take place, and we've identified a couple of things that we'd like to bring forward in that conversation, just some questions that we've got about things like eligibility, like Jeff mentioned, and also how you can access the funds if you've got full day kinder kids that are not yet on site, but will be showing up through your planning process. So we look forward to engaging with OPSC and the other stakeholders to really understand and figure out how that program will operate in its expanded form, because those are really important resources to help us get those TK facilities on site to serve all these new kids. And with that, I hope to see you all tomorrow at our workshop. And I'll hand it back to, I see Nancy popping up on the screen. I'm not sure, Nancy, if you wanted to add anything else.
I did. Sorry. I just realized I forgot one thing that was on my list of items to talk about. We wanted to give you a heads up that the Joint Legislative Audit Committee approved an audit of the school facilities program a few weeks ago. And, sometimes these things are like really salacious and things of that nature. This is not one of those. This is more of a policy review. And some of the items on the work list for the state auditor are, the usual, how is the Office of Public School Construction implementing statute, things of that nature, but they're also requested to do something that is a little bit out of their wheelhouse, which is to kind of look at the overall, I think, structure of the program and the equitability. So Cash's position on that is that we always welcome improvements in this program, obviously, and to improve the distribution of those funds. So many of you have already been contacted as a priority audit. The state auditor's office got on this really quickly. So obviously, if you are contacted, we hope you will be able to provide the best information to that process and to help us hopefully come out with some good recommendations at the end that'll help us have a stronger program. So with that, we just wanted you to have a heads up. If you were to be one of the districts that's participating, I think you would have been contacted by now, but that, they could still add some others going forward. And we just wanted you to have a heads up, particularly if you're not one of those participating in the process. So we will have an update whenever that audit report is available. And with that, we will conclude and hand it back to Jeff.
Right. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, Cash does look forward to participating in that audit process and sharing information. As Nancy said, we do want to improve the program and the equity within the program. And that can be looked at through many lenses. So looking forward to that conversation. And then next up, I think I'm inviting Nancy back to join us with a School Energy Coalition update. Welcome back, Nancy.
You are. A long time no see. I have just a quick update on behalf of the School Energy Coalition. And that is that we issued, I believe just yesterday, we issued a coalition letter to the California Energy Commission urging it to keep schools in the NEM 2.0 structure as opposed to putting us in this new NEM 3.0 that they are developing, which would make our solar projects no longer feasible financially, which is something that we are greatly concerned about. And we're very pleased that we were joined in that letter by the Association of California School Administrators, the California School Boards Association, and the California Association of School Business Officials. So together, really, all of the heavyweight general education associations with CASH and SEC. So we're pretty pleased that we were able to make that statement together. And we continue to explore other avenues and state budget funding for school energy resiliency. So with that is all I have for School Energy Coalition.
All right, thank you, Nancy. That is an important issue with that solar net energy metering. So next up, we have Dave Walrath. Dave's going to join us and give us an update on Californians for School Facilities and the high level of activity around federal funding. So Dave, please join us.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. It seems like every week is Federal Infrastructure Week, and this play has more than 3 different sections. It seems to keep going on and on. Today's most recent update is that the first infrastructure bill, which does not include schools, in the Senate, the bipartisan group has reached agreement, and they may be voting on an outline of that this evening, late East Coast time, with the plans of trying to have something pulled together on that and sent to the House by the middle to end of next week. As I said, that one does not include schools. The next one, the $3.5 trillion infrastructure proposal, the reconciliation proposal, which can be done by simple majority, that is still in a lot of process. Our lobbyist back in DC, Bob Canavan, has been working on the California delegation to encourage them to fight for the $100 billion that we are supporting for federal support of public schools. That is an ongoing fight. We need our champions in the House to fight for us. The Senate is also being contacted by some of the individuals with whom we are in coalition for the $100 billion, which was the president's proposal. So we are trying to have both the House and Senate bring this up in this dollar amount for the great big bill, which is the follow-up bill to the bipartisan. So first bipartisan, then the partisan bill. A lot going on. We expect it to continue going on probably into late September, October.
Dave, do you have any more information? I know the 100 billion is as a part of the great big bill. Maybe we'll call it the GBB. Do you have any information on a breakdown between what is direct grants and what is bonds?
The president's proposal was 50 billion direct grants and 50 billion bonds. The House original proposal that was done by the House Education and Labor Committee was 70 billion on grants and 30 billion on tax credit bonds. So there's a difference there on what and how they'll be allocated. But that's the type of difference. It's easily, once you have the top line, it's easy to deal with those types of differences.
Well, we'll hope for that big top line number and a good share for California schools. So
absolutely.
Appreciate your hard work on this issue, and as well as Bob's in the Capitol. All right, next up, we have our Vice Chair, Alan Rising, with an update on planning for the 43rd Annual Conference. Alan, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning. Thank you. So right on the heels of the successful 42nd Annual Conference held down in Palm Springs, we are quickly moving forward with the 43rd Annual Conference, which we plan on being the best conference ever. And I know we say that every year, but we are going to make a lot of strides to making that the best conference. It will be held in the newly renovated Sacramento Convention Center in February of 2022. So again, as I had said, planning is fully underway. You may have seen in your email boxes a call for topics and volunteers. The deadline for getting some of those great topics, that great information and that we present, the deadline for that is this coming Friday. So if you haven't clicked send on those wonderfully written topics, please get those in by Friday so that we can begin the process of reviewing those topics and developing a great program for everyone. We are also, again, as I mentioned, called for volunteers, for those individuals that want to be a part of our planning, that want to work with us to develop the great curriculum that we put out there. Those volunteers are also due on Friday. We currently have a planning meeting scheduled for August the 19th, where we'll begin to work on what the conference will look like and all the great materials that we'll be presenting. It's a great opportunity. We have a little bit of a compressed schedule due to the delay with our 42nd conference, but we're excited. We're ready to come back to Sacramento after a few years of being gone. I'm personally excited to see what they've done with the new convention center up in Sacramento and what that will look like and some of the new features that we'll have. And again, we're trying to really keep it cutting edge and staying on top of all of the comments that our attendees gave us for the Palm Springs conference and make the Sacramento 2022 conference that much better. So it's a great time to be involved. So highly recommend everybody jump in and become a part of making this the best conference ever. So with that, I think I'll turn it back over to Jeff.
All right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Alan. I see some kind of rocket ship on that artist rendering there. I'm wondering what that's about. But,
yeah, I see that. I'm not exactly sure where we got this from, but it's, this convention center is firing off to new heights, right? New and improved. This will be one of the very first conferences back at the new Safe Credit Union Convention Center right there in downtown Sacramento. So it'll be a fantastic opportunity for us to be there and be back face to face.
All right. Well, looking forward to checking that out in person. Thanks for all your work on that, Alan.
Great. Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, next up, we have a school district briefing on their COVID-19 reopening experience. I think over the pandemic, these have been very helpful to school districts to hear what our colleagues are going through and gaining some knowledge and insight of how other folks are handling the pandemic. So today I'm pleased to have with us Dr. Lisa Gonzalez. Lisa is the Chief Business Official with Mount Diablo Unified School District. So Lisa, if you join me on the screen, we will turn it over to you. And thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for welcoming me. Can everybody hear me okay?
You sound great.
Great. So I have to say, I'm the newbie in the group. This is my first opportunity to be at one of the CASH monthly meetings, but I feel like I'm part of the family and have been for the last 6 months because I am one of the participants in the School Facility Leadership Academy, which has been an amazing experience. So if anybody has ever thought about it, you need to get that on your to-do list and your goals for 2022. I don't know if I can navigate. So next slide, please. Now, some of what I'm going to share here, it may be a little bit of it is what we've discussed already with other presenters, but I just want to share some real basic data about what we're seeing right now with COVID. So this first slide here, all this information came out within the last 2 days. The sources are there on the bottom if anybody would like to see them. But what we're starting to see is, we saw some real huge peaks back in October through February or March, which we knew made it very difficult for us to bring students back. But, we're starting to see some of those again. Next slide, please. By looking at this slide, what we're able to do is we're able to focus in not only on the United States, but specifically California. So we can see that our numbers are really on the increase. I am not telling you anything that you don't already know, but if you go into the slides and you decide that you want to share this with your school community for whatever conversations, this information is here. So we are on an upward trajectory here. As a matter of fact, if you take a look right now in California over the last few months, 3 weeks ago, actually less than a month, 3 weeks ago, we were at 13,000 new cases, then at 19, last week 32, and they're expecting 51 this week. So, we're shifting, right? Next slide, please. These are locations in the nation where there are the highest areas of increases right now. And although there are some states that are beating us, if you look at the color combinations there, we are definitely in the orange, which really notes, as you see on the bottom, escalating community spread. Next slide, please. Now, I don't think our journey here in Mount Diablo is any different than any of what any of you might be experiencing. Just to put a little in context, we represent 7 cities and jurisdictions. Up here, we're in the East Bay of the Silicon Valley. So if you know where the A's play, we're about 15 to 20 minutes from that area. 30,000 students, 53 school sites and other sites that we support, a little over 4,500 total employees, including a lot of our coaches. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a perspective. And right now, the biggest changes that we've been experiencing along with the rest of you is mask wearing. Yes, no, and it's sort of bounced all over the place, especially this last week. So I have to tell you that one of the things that we've tried to do is we've tried to slow way down. And even when the CDC has come out with options like, you don't have to wear the masks if you're vaccinated, we decided we were going to proceed really slowly. And I'm grateful that we did, because of course, now it's changed again. And we're really trying to prevent mixed messages, people not understanding some of the messages or not getting all the information with some of the changes. Spacing and distancing, do you do 6 feet? Do you do 3 feet? Do you do no feet? those all apply especially to food services and over in food services. You know, we've even been looking at some of the changes that came out within the last 2 weeks regarding individual meal packaging, because in a district of 30,000, I mean, these are huge $500,000 shifts. Okay, we're going to have these on order. Okay, we don't need that order. Well, things are changing. Do we want to do something or not? And then, of course, the biggest one has to do with the requirements for pre-approval for capital expenditures. And I have to say that, you know, as we've been going through the meeting here, I've been lining up a lot of my spreadsheets with a lot of the information that I'm sending to the group, the infamous Ed Relief Funds email address. And for any of you that have been dragging your feet, if you need any assistance or you want to see some models, please reach out. So far, I have submitted 17, and knock on wood, I'm at 100% for getting everything approved. So creative writing has become my specialty. There have been a few where they've reached out and they've said, hey, you know, we need a little more justification for this. And I've pulled out my skills in creative writing, and I've been able to be successful. So happy to help anybody that might need it. Next slide, please. So some of the big things we're taking a look at, sort of real globally, 30,000 foot perspective. A lot of our families, they have many, many questions. I know we are not alone. As a matter of fact, we are trying not to reinvent the wheel. So we've got some districts that are opening near us. They open this week. We're taking a look at all the information that they are sharing with their school community. And again, rather than reinventing the wheel, we're just taking a look at what others are doing and we're tweaking them for ourselves. So, you know, office access, can we come in? Can we volunteer? Do we wear masks? Do we not? You know, visitors, vaccinations. I mean, all these things we're really trying to update and make sure that we're sending it out to our principals ahead of time, saying, look, guys, 2 to 3 hours from now, we're going to share this with the rest of the community. We wanted to send it to you first, but we really can't wait for principals to be returning next week. If you sort of move over into the facilities related topics, a lot of conversations around cleaning and sanitation best practices. Certainly we don't want it to be you know, as focused necessarily as we were looking at last summer, because we've learned a whole lot about viruses and new products have come out. So we're making sure that we have everything up on our website, and we're referring parents in the community back to that, because we want it to be sort of a one-stop shop for all of our information. The same goes for social distancing. We're continuing to do updates on ventilation and how frequently we replace MERV 13s, which for us is quarterly now. How we're addressing hand washing. We decided we weren't going to jump on the bandwagon and get hand washing stations and put them everywhere. So every classroom that does have running water, we do have the appropriate items there. And for every place else, and including every place else, we've got more hand sanitizer than we can ever use for the next school year and then some. You know, water dispensers. One of the decisions I made heading into summer was, let's install touchless water dispensers. Let's put at least 2 at every single school site. Larger school sites, let's put multiples, because, you know, it's one of those visible things where parents and students can see it right away, as can staff. And it does help, but we are turning all of our drinking fountains back on. We made that decision this week as an executive cabinet. And then right now we're looking at the applications for you know, food and nutrition and transportation and no social distancing. I think I'm going to get to that in one more slide. But the ways that we are responding and the ways that we are sharing our information, we're using our website. We're using direct messaging through Parent Square. We have all of our principals that use Parent Square, and we can send messages out through the district. We always do updates at our board meetings, and we're getting ready to have those starting again in a couple of weeks. We realize that the most credible source in the district is really the principals at school sites. So we're giving them canned information that they can put in their newsletters. Sometimes our director of facilities or our director of M&O, other directors write them. Sometimes I do. And it's really a plug and play. I try to make sure that I get it to them by Thursday. And for those that put things out on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, it's all ready to go. And then we continue to update our principals on a regular basis at meetings. And then I started a number of things this last year, including a brown bag with the CBO. I do that a couple of days after every board meeting. And it's an opportunity for me to meet with all the principals and directors and anybody that just wants to come hang out for an hour and really answer their questions and try to be as responsive because of all of the departments that fall under me within business services. Next slide. A couple of snapshots in transportation. We do have mask mandates, no social distancing. We have those backpack type cleaning misters, which allow us to much more rapidly clean facilities and clean buses. And so we have those available, and we have put in play that windows need to be opened at least 3 inches when the buses are in operation with students. Hand washing, again, I mentioned that one, drinking fountains, 2 touchless. From a nutritional perspective, you know, we're all now working through the implications of universal feeding. So for breakfast, break time and lunch, we have meals that will be available to all students. We are a scratch cooking district, which means we're very careful about the work that we do in our kitchens, but face coverings will be required in lines, distances during eating time. We just pulled back on the social distancing and lines. We just caught some documents that said 6 feet. We know that's going to be very, very difficult to do and no longer required. But, you know, we will encourage the 2 to 3 feet, you know, give your classmates some space. And then looking as much as possible into outdoor eating spaces and other places. But we're really refraining from allowing food in classrooms because we realize on the other side of the house for, you know, pests, infestations, cleaning, spills on floors and carpets. That's really not a direction that we want to go. Next slide. That's it from my perspective. So I know that I'm about out of time, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to monitor the chat. And if anybody's got questions for me, by all means, toss them out. I appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about the Mount Diablo story. And I just want to also take a moment to thank everybody for the hard work that you're doing. We have very thankless jobs. And on behalf of the CASH team, I know that we appreciate everything that you do. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa, for joining us. That's some great information, and hopefully folks got some ideas that could be helpful in your district, or even just affirmation that you're on the right path as well. Alan, did you have a question? I saw you pop up there.
No, I was just going to congratulate Lisa on the great work that you've done, and you know, as you were going through some of the techniques that you're using to do things like keeping all of our stakeholders and our school sites aware of some of the decisions that are being made. We're replicating very many of those techniques here as well. So there was some affirmation that I was going to congratulate you on. And really, it's so much about how we support those individuals at our school site that are going to be our representatives as we move towards this new world, this new returning to school. So I just wanted to applaud you in the work that you're doing, and thank you for really protecting the students and staff of your district and all around the state. So thank you.
Yeah, and finally, thank you, Lisa, for being willing to share your information with other districts and your experience in getting those project approvals. And congratulations on the School Facility Leadership Academy. I hope you have a great experience there. All right, next slide, please. So job exchange. So if you have a job opening at your district or an RFP or RFQ opportunity, feel free to use the CASH website and get those listed. You can reach a really broad audience, a broader audience than you may be able to reach just locally. So log in again to the CASH website and make sure you get those posted there. You see a few of the openings that are currently there. And if you happen to have an opening, feel free to post it in the chat while you get that listed on the CASH website as well. All right, last slide, I think. Our next CASH day is August 25th. So make sure to mark your calendars for that at 11 o'clock in the morning again. And really appreciate again all of our presenters this morning, John and Lisa and Nancy and Rebecca, Alan and Lisa Gonzalez as well, and Dave Walrath. Thank you so much for being with us today. Hope you have a great day and looking forward to seeing many of you tomorrow in the TK web shop. All right, take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.